Mr. Nutan Kumar NN, BSc Agri, Mandya, is awarded late Ombalamma Chennaigoda and K. Manchagoda Memorial Gold Medal. Mr. Prakash KN, BSc Agri, Hassan, is awarded Best Sportsman cum Scholar Award in memory of late Balchanda Nanaya Ganapati, ex-student of US Bangalore. Miss Ganashi KV, BSc Forest, Ponnempet, is awarded 4 gold medals. US Gold Medal for General Merit, Shri Bangalore Puttaya Ramakrishna Memorial Gold Medal, AR Sivabasaya Memorial Gold Medal, Srimati Chapura Neelamma Subbaya Gold Medal. Miss Kavita C, B.Tech Food Science and Technology, Hassan, is awarded 7 gold medals. US Gold Medal for General Merit, Natasar Boma Rajkumar Sanman Samiti Gold Medal, late Dr. R. Kiran Patel Memorial Gold Medal, Jindal Jubilee Gold Medal, Srimati Hanuman Sri Dasagowda Gold Medal, Besagaral Yappaji Gowda Memorial Gold Medal, Bikkannavasalli Ramareddy Memorial Gold Medal.
ಇದೀಗ ಕುಲಪತಿಗಳು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಕೃಷಿ ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯದ ವಿಶ್ರಾಂತ ಕುಲಪತಿಗಳಾದ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆರ್ ದ್ವಾರಕೆನಾಥ್ ರವರನ್ನು ಗೌರವ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಪದವಿ ಪ್ರದಾನ ಮಾಡಲು ಗೌರವಪೂರ್ವಕವಾಗಿ ಹಾಜರುಪಡಿಸುತ್ತಾರೆ.
I have the honor to present to you Dr. R. Dwarkinath, former Vice Chancellor, US Bangalore, for conferment of Honorary Doctor of Science, Honoris Causa, to which I pray he may be awarded with the degree of Doctor of Science, Honoris Causa of US Bangalore. Dr. Ramaswamy Dwarkinath is an outstanding alumnus of the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore. Born in Dodaganjur village of Kolar district of Karnataka in 1926, graduated from the then Ebol Agriculture College in 1949, and he was the first batch graduate of Agriculture College which started in 1946. He acquired Master's Science degree in Extension and Rural Sociology from the University of Tennessee in 1960 and PhD from the Cornell University, USA, 1973. He started his career in the erstwhile Mysore State as a soil survey officer. Dr. R. Dwarkinath worked as District Agricultural Officer, Project Executive Officer in the first pilot extension project in Mandya district between 1952-56. Thereafter, he was Principal Pilot Training Project, Mandya, Assistant Professor of Agronomy, Extension at the Ebol Agriculture College, Director of In-Service Training, Government of Karnataka, and later Principal Orientation and Studies Center, Hyderabad. Dr. R. Dwarkinath was instrumental in establishing new benchmarks through its initiatives, innovative methods, and broad vision about agriculture development. Some of his contributions that deserve mention are: as Director of Extension in the US, Bangalore, from 1965 to 74, Dr. R. Dwarkinath planned and established the University Extension System. His pioneering initiatives acted as a model that was replicated in several agriculture universities in the country. As Director of Agriculture, 1974-78, Dr. R. Dwarkinath engineered a paradigm shift in the manpower capability of the field extension workers at all levels. Dr. R. Dwarkinath's appointment in 1979 as the Vice Chancellor of the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, promoted increased focus on critical areas of enhancement of the technical capability of the faculty, management of research and research stations, and operational efficiency of the extension system. Dr. R. Dwarkinath served as Chief Technical Advisor of FAO and UNDP project in Indonesia from 1981 to 1986. As an active member, Dr. R. Dwarkanath supported the growth and development of Institution of Agriculture Technologies, Bangalore. After his return from FAO assignment, Dr. R. Dwarkanath's expertise was available by host of organizations and institutions within the states and outside. Notable activities were consultant in agriculture development and extension staff training for Danida and Swiss Development Corporation, resource person and team leader of several Danida's study teams, member World Bank review team of the Tribhuvan University, Nepal, member Karnataka State Planning Board, chairman Karnataka Krishi Mission, chairman 5th Research Review Committee of the Indian Coffee Board, team leader Central Silk Board Study Group, member Biodiversity Conservation Group, chairman committee constituted by the Government of Karnataka to formulate operational guidelines for restructuring Karnataka State Department of Agriculture, chairman Research Advisory Council to Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, Hyderabad. Widely traveled in Asia, Europe and USA. Dr. R. Dwarkanath is a recipient of numerous awards and honors such as Karnataka Rajyotsav Award, Lifetime Achievement Award of the Indian International Society of Extension Education, National Extension Award of the Indian Society of Extension Education, Sir M. Visvarjya Senior Scientist Award of the Government of Karnataka, recognizing his laudable contribution to agricultural education, research and expansion, and his passionate advocacy of the cause of dryland farmers. The US Alumni Association honored him during the US Alumni Global Meet 2010. Dr. R. Dwarkanath is a born communicator, has the ability to fragment an issue to its elements and assemble them back into a perspective. He has naturally come to be regarded as the Dian of agriculture development, especially of dryland farming within Karnataka and also outside the state. Above all, he has been a mentor of all seekers. We consider it is a privilege and a tribute to confirm the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa of the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, upon Dr. Ramaswamy Dwarkanath on the occasion of 46th convocation of the university on 13th April 2012.
ಮಾನ್ಯ ಕುಲಪತಿಯವರು ಮಾನ್ಯ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆರ್ ದ್ವಾರಕಿನಾಥ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಗೌರವ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಪದವಿಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರದಾನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕೆಂದು ವಿನಂತಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಈಗ ಕುಲಪತಿಯವರು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅತಿಥಿಗಳಾದ ಸನ್ಮಾನ್ಯ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಸಿ ರಂಗರಾಜನ್ ಅವರನ್ನು ಘಟಿಕೋತ್ಸವ ಭಾಷಣ ಮಾಡಲು ಆಹ್ವಾನಿಸುತ್ತಾರೆ.
I invite the chief guest, Dr. Chakravarti Rangarajan, Honorable Chairman, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, New Delhi, to deliver the convocation address.
Distinguished Vice Chancellor Dr. K. Narayana Gaura, members of the Board of Management and Academic Council, former Vice Chancellors, distinguished guests, members of faculty and staff, and graduating students. It gives me very great pleasure to be in your midst this morning and to deliver the 46th annual convocation address of the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore. I am deeply grateful to the Chancellor of the University and to the Vice Chancellor for inviting me to deliver the address. The origins of this university goes back to almost to the 19th century. Since 1963, when it became a university, this university has grown into a strong institution and has provided quality agricultural education, cutting-edge research and extension services. I am particularly happy to know that this university has released so far 170 improved varieties of seeds in cereals, pulses, oilseeds and other commercial crops. As I shall emphasize later, this is the direction in which all agricultural universities must move in order to ensure. Congratulate all of you who are graduating today. Let me add a word of special appreciation to those who are receiving awards. One stage in your life is coming to an end and another is about to begin. You will be entering the world with all its ups and downs, moving away from the sheltered collegiate life. From the country's point of view, we welcome you as our next generation of change agents in agriculture. In a sense, your future is intertwined with the future of this country. At the same time, you also have the opportunity to shape that future. The importance of agriculture in India's economy cannot be overstated. It is true that the contribution of agriculture to the overall GDP has been coming down. It fell from 30% in 1990-91 to 14.5% in 2010-11. However, this decrease in agricultural contribution to GDP has not been accompanied by a matching reduction in the share of agriculture in employment. Even today, about 52% of the total workforce is still employed in the farm sector. The last 2 years have clearly shown how even a small shortfall in food production can cause serious distortions in the economy. From the point of view of food security, reduction of poverty, and balanced regional development, agricultural growth is imperative. The World Development Report 2008 brings out clearly that agricultural growth is at least twice as effective as non-agricultural growth in reducing poverty. The growth performance of the agricultural sector has been fluctuating over the last 2 decades. Between 1992 and 1997, this sector grew at 4.8%, but the growth rate came down to 2.5% during the period 1997-2002 and further to 2.4% during 2002-2007. During the 11th plan period, there has been a pickup in agricultural growth, which is estimated to be 3.4%. The trend rate of growth of agriculture during 92-93 to 2010-11 was 2.8%, while the average annual rate of growth in agriculture and allied activities during the same period was 3.2%. It must also be noted that agricultural performance in India has also been volatile. The coefficient of variation during 2000 to 2010 was 1.6 as compared to 1.1 during the period 92-93 to 99-2000. This is at least 6 times more than the coefficient of variation observed in the overall GDP growth in the country. Besides, there is a wide variation in the performance of different states. During the period 2000-2001 to 2008-2009, the growth performance of agriculture in Rajasthan at 8.2%, Gujarat at 7.7%, and Bihar 7.1% was much higher than that of Uttar Pradesh at 3.2% and West Bengal at 2.4%. It is heartening to note that some of the poor performing states have shown stronger growth in the recent period. The plan documents have always set the target for the annual rate of growth of agriculture and allied activities at 4.4%. We have fallen short of this target in almost every plan. Looking at the agricultural scene, I feel there are 5 areas which need attention if we ought to achieve the target we have set plan after plan. First, a need for renewed technology intervention. Agricultural productivity, as measured by the yield per hectare, is low in India as compared to many other countries. This applies almost to every crop. In mid-1960s, a new agricultural strategy was adopted which emphasized on the spreading of the dwarf and high-yielding varieties of wheat. Along with high-yielding varieties, emphasis was also laid on the use of fertilizers supplemented by the availability of adequate water. The new strategy paid dividends and resulted in the well-acclaimed green revolution. However, since then, there has been no major breakthrough. There is a clear evidence of technology fatigue. The yields of almost all the crops have stagnated. Among the 2 major cereals, productivity of rice shows an annual growth rate of 1.69%, while wheat productivity experienced less than half of 1% growth. Productivity in pulses remained unimpressive. Only in cotton there has been a sharp increase in the yield. If we have to usher in a second green revolution, we need some significant technological revolution. We have made large investments in agricultural universities and research institutions. It is high time that our research institutions rise to the occasion and provide solid support for improving the productivity in agriculture. Seed is an important carrier of technology. Seed is a basic input to raise productivity. I do not want to belittle the contributions made by scientific institutions in agriculture. Nevertheless, in the case of most crops, the scope for increasing the yield per hectare is immense. This is particularly true in relation to dryland farming, and the number of people dependent on dryland farming is also very large in our country. A conscious effort to upgrade technology in agriculture has become necessary. Second, institutional support to small and marginal land holdings. The average area of operational holdings in India has diminished progressively from 2.28 hectares in 1970-71 to 1.55 hectare in 1991-92 and further down to 1.3 hectare in 2005-6. According to the agricultural census of 2005-6, the proportion of marginal holdings, that is less than 1 hectare, has increased from 61.6% in 1995-96 to 64.8% in 2005-6. This is followed by 18% of small holdings, that is between 1 and 2 hectares. Thus, marginal and small holdings constitute a significantly large proportion of the total holdings. The small and marginal holdings account for a high proportion of the total output. According to one estimate, small and marginal farmers together supply 62% of paddy, 54% of coarse cereals, and 52% of wheat. It is not surprising that with such small operational holdings, most farmers are not able to earn a reasonable income. Over 45% of farmers interviewed by the National Sample Survey Organization had expressed a desire to quit farming. How can we help the small and marginal farmers to overcome the handicap of size? Most of the agricultural innovations, such as improved variety of seeds, or fertilizers, or pesticides, are scale neutral. All the same, handicaps faced by the small and marginal farmers in obtaining inputs such as seeds, fertilizers and pesticides at reasonable prices can be overcome to a certain extent by appropriate institutional support. These farmers should be organized to form themselves into formal or informal groups and pool the requirements of inputs and thereby gain the advantage that may exist because of the scale. Thus, aggregation in purchases of inputs and sale of products of small farmers can help to overcome the handicaps of small size. Appropriately supervised contract farming can also be a help. Shift to high value crops such as vegetables is surely an option. However, without adequate credit support and marketing arrangements, this may not work. Thus, a strong institutional support to small and marginal farmers is very much needed if they have to overcome the disadvantages of size. Also, the meager income of small and marginal farmers need to be supplemented by non-farming activities of the rural areas. 3. Improved marketing of products. The marketing arrangements with respect to agricultural products remain archaic. Some of the legislations, such as the APMC, have also not helped the farmers. There is a big difference between the price farmers get for the products and what the consumers pay for the products. This difference is extremely glaring in the case of perishable commodities like vegetables. Reform of the marketing arrangements must be given priority by state governments. In the case of rice and wheat, public procurement to some extent takes care of the problem. In the case of other agricultural products, a significant improvement in the marketing arrangements can by itself give to the farmers a higher level of income. 4. Availability of credit. There has been a significant increase in the flow of bank credit to agriculture in recent years. For example, it has increased from 38,000 crore in 2001 to 3 lakh crore in 2011. However, a critical analysis of the data indicates that a good part of this credit has gone to medium and large farmers. The small farmers continue to depend on the informal sources to obtain credit on onerous terms. The emphasis on financial inclusion has made the Indian banks aware of this. The Committee on Priority Sector Credit has recommended a sub-ceiling of 9% of net bank credit for credit to small and marginal farmers. However, banks need to put in place some kind of institutional arrangement, such as business correspondence, to get the small and marginal farmers closer to the organized banks. And 5, investment in agriculture. The key driver of growth is investment. The gross capital formation in agriculture as a percentage of agricultural GDP rose steadily from the first plan to the end of the fifth plan, when it touched 10.8%. After that, there was a steady decline which was reversed only during the ninth plan. It now stands at 18.7% of agricultural GDP. It has more than doubled during the last decade. But the sad fact is that there has been no commensurate improvement in the rate of growth of agricultural output. This shows a declining efficiency in the use of capital. Additional investment in irrigation, particularly in major and medium projects, has not resulted in a proportionate increase in output. One sees a similar trend even in input use. In fact, the increase in the use of fertilizers has not resulted also in a commensurate increase in output. A multi-pronged approach to improve productivity is needed. Investment, however, will be a significant element in that. It must also be noted that public investment now forms only 20% of the total investment in agriculture. 80% comes from the private sector. I have talked about what ails Indian agriculture and what needs to be done. This is not an exhaustive enumeration of the challenges or the solutions. There are many more dimensions which I have not covered or discussed. We need to tackle on an urgent basis the task to raise the productivity of agriculture and the income of the farmers. Perhaps what I have said about Indian agriculture